hitting record. And we are officially recording. This is Kathy with La Femme Salon, and am I delighted today to share one of my favorite people, Dr. Erin Foley. And she is a chiropractor turned functional medicine practitioner. We actually met doing a little bit of energy work, so she's one of us through and through, recognizing how the body and mind come together to create optimal health for women. And Erin now focuses on helping women to balance their hormones naturally. So she's working with the body in many different ways that she's going to share with us now. And I think you're really going to relate to her story about energy and how she actually came about this. So why don't you start with a little bit of your story and how you found your way to functional medicine to begin with?
Oh, okay. Well, hello, everybody. So I have been in the natural health field for decades, and that's pretty much the only thing I've ever done. It's my mission in life, and I really tuned into helping women many years ago. But I actually went through my own hormone difficulties, where I had severe adrenal fatigue. I had fibromyalgia. I had some injuries. And I personally went through like being really so tired. I couldn't get off the couch. I went through a divorce. I went through a lot of stress. And one of the things that I came out on the other side was how to naturally balance my hormones and the hormones of my women patients. So I've not only, so I've been a chiropractor for many, many years, and I'm certified in functional medicine, and I have a national board certification in acupuncture. But even with all my education, I ended up going through, I went through it just like a lot of my patients do. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so why don't you tell us, just for those who don't know, what functional medicine actually is?
So functional medicine is getting to the root cause of health problems. So you can be, I'm a chiropractor, a doctor of chiropractic, you can be a naturopathic doctor, a medical doctor, but it's a more holistic way of looking at the body, and we look at getting to the root cause. So we do a lot of testing, and it's not just doing a few blood tests like you might get at your primary care doctor. We will do panels of tests. There's just so many things we can find out by testing. And I do saliva testing, so I can test all your hormones, your blood sugar hormones, your adrenal hormones. But we also test, like, we can do stool testing. We can do heavy metal testing, allergy testing. So it's really about taking, and my focus is women. So it's taking women and finding out what is going on and being a detective and figuring out, first of all, what's going on root cause wise, and then we go into natural methods of healing. So nutrition and diet are like really the bottom line. Supplements, and this is nutrition and diet and supplements for what your body needs based on your tests. And also I get into lifestyle, exercise, and mindset. So it's basically not just physical, it's also mental and emotional too.
Right. And so I just want to kind of circle back on what you said, because you said so many things just in the description, is that functional medicine, it's not just finding out like, oh, you're low in energy or you're low in estrogen. It's trying to understand what is it in the body that's contributing to the body not optimally functioning. So, okay, so maybe it's a thyroid issue. I know, and women in their 50s, like, we do change. I mean, this is the time of change. So how do you support your body through the change? Your body's going to is always seeking to find that balance in and of itself, but what are the things going on now that are causing the imbalance, and then what can we put in that help it to find, to support the body in finding its balance? Is that
Yeah, absolutely. What happens is we now have Google, and you can go and Google anything. And so I have women coming to me, and they've been working on a particular health problem for years, and they're doing things that other people who are not health professionals have said, oh, do this or do this. And what I feel like is I can help women get to the root cause. Like, let's find out. Let's not guess anymore. Let's not get the real, true information. that's right for your body. And I've had really great testimonials from women who just, they are now, like, even within a week to a month, they're making huge changes, in feeling better right away because we figured it out. So that's kind of my passion, is helping women figure it out.
Kind of like a detective. And I like,
Yes.
again, I want to underscore what you said, is that there's no one path for everyone. It's not like a
Right.
prescription of like you're low here or your progesterone's not keeping up.
Right.
It's identifying for that person what's gonna to fit. And I love that you're doing the testing so that there's actual proof of where the body is, so that you can then move into finding the right balance. And it sounds like you're starting a lot with or diet and exercise kind of things. What would be typical?
Well, let's see. First of all, so all the tests are not even the same. I mean, I do a lot of the same basic tests just because they are in health indicators. But then, there's just all the stuff we can individualize. So it's like every woman kind of gets a little different look into what's going on. And then as far as nutrition, I have several ways of working with women. So if a woman has, say, a gut issue, I'm going to go more gut and allergy, candida. We're going to go more in a way of like a paleo way of eating. For a lot of women, we're looking at inflammation and insulin resistance, and like high blood sugar. And so then we need to dial back, sugar and refined carbohydrates. And I mean, it's just different for every single one. Yeah. And it's also there, what willingness, how much change are you willing to make? And little changes is just the bottom line where you start. And I always start where they are too. It's like, yeah.
So it's not going to be like a drastic change necessarily. You're meeting them where they are, and some people are able to make the small changes so that they can begin to make the momentum and balancing and see the changes. And to me, it's amazing how quickly, like you said, in the first week or two,
Yeah.
you'll start to feeling better just from simple things. So I just want to. So how would you compare or contrast with? It just seems like when women have hormone problems at this time, they don't really know where to go. So there are hormone replacement kind of places. Like what's that like? How much similarity is there between what they're doing and what you're doing?
Okay, so first of all, I always want to say it's not just about hot flashes. So when I talk to women about hormones, a lot of times I've been working with women late 30s to early 70s. So hot flashes occur perimenopause, menopause, so like maybe late 40s, 50s, even into 60s. But so it's not just about hot flashes, because you have your thyroid hormone, which is your metabolism. So that's weight and metabolism.
Which is interesting. Just then, I always think that there's like the disease focus of the year, or the vitamin of the year, or the diet plan of the year. And for a long time, it seemed like the thyroid was like the big focus. So people are having either overstimulated or underperforming thyroid, and it takes the brunt for that. So like,
well, I would say for me, I see the biggest thing I see is women who are complaining of energy problems. So the three energy hormones I look at is thyroid, but as a chiropractor, I don't prescribe medication. So I can test it. And I do like 5 different tests, because most primary care docs will do one test and say, and if, so the lab values in a medical situation are pretty wide, but for thyroid functional medicine, we need to have them pretty narrow for you to feel good. So I do tell women a lot, okay, I think you need to go see your doctor and get some more care for your thyroid. But I also look at your insulin and blood sugar. So insulin is your fat storing hormone, and your adrenals. So adrenals are your stress hormones. And I think the biggest thing I see with most of my women is adrenal fatigue of some kind. Yeah. And that's from long-term prolonged stress, which depletes stress hormones.
And to me, I always think of like the boiling frog kind of a thing. It's like, we don't even recognize how much stress we're under, because it happens slowly over time. And now this is just my new normal. I'm stressed all the time, and there's not It's not like one day you wake up and your back hurts. It's just like slowly you're kind of like under the weight of all the stress.
Yeah,
So
so
how
that's
many?
one of the biggest things I do see. So one of the things I test pretty much on everybody is adrenal stress index test, which is a saliva collection test. And we can see what your cortisol levels are doing 5 times throughout the day. And it's very interesting because so when I sit down with a woman, I've done all this paperwork, we've done an interview, we've done a consultation, and yet it's always interesting to get back the test results, because sometimes it's just not what I would have thought. And it's like, oh, she's high or she's really low, when I would have thought the opposite. So that's why the testing is so valuable, because then I can put them on a path of like, okay, this is how you can heal. But those 3 are the main hormones, is your adrenals, your thyroid, and your insulin. And those 3 hormones actually create your energy, your weight, your metabolism, your sleep. I mean, so they're like everything. And then if they're
And mood.
yeah, and your mood too. And if you're deficient, that can cause hot flashes. So it's like the hot flashes are, to me, the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
Now, you asked about bioidentical hormones. So this is kind of the long way to get there. But so when I deal with like the natural side, but I do test, the sex hormones, so the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and I will find women at younger ages very deficient. And I do recommend bioidentical hormones. Bioidentical hormones are identical. Okay, so the medically prescribed hormones, such as Premarin and Provera, these are hormones that are synthetic. And many years ago, there was a very large study of women that actually showed that they were toxic and that they were causing breast cancer. So women at that time stopped taking them. And this was a time when the bioidentical hormones were coming out, and they're identical to our own female hormones. So it's replacing lost hormone. And I do recommend it for women who are really low in hormones like estrogen and progesterone and testosterone at young ages. But it can also just make you comfortable more as you age. It can help with healthy aging. You're not putting toxic doses in because you keep getting your levels tested with the blood. And, it's like you're kind of creating a normal environment. So there's no reason to suffer. And I have doctors that I refer women to. And
would you consider that just like a bridge from here till your body's able to find that homeostasis for itself?
Yeah, I think for everybody it's different. I have some women who do them for a little while and then they stop. I think the bottom line, the underlying bedrock of this is the diet, nutrition, exercise, supplements, lifestyle, and mindset. So if you have if you're not doing well there, the hormones will help you feel better. But ultimately, you need to have that bottom line of a healthy lifestyle. And the less stress you have in your life and the healthier your adrenals are, the less your hormones fluctuate too. Or I guess you'd say the better your menopause would be. Women are usually with stress. So if they have stressed out adrenals, they'll have more menopausal symptoms.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, what percentage of women would you say? To me, I would think it's just about everybody would have some adrenal overload, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if I found anybody who doesn't have adrenal problems, but I think the important thing to figure out is your cortisol high or low? Low means it's been long-term stress, and because high cortisol is the first step. But I've had a few women who aren't sleeping, and we find out they have high cortisol at night. And I've even been through that. It's not fun. It's like, it doesn't matter what you try until you get your cortisol levels at night to come down, you won't be sleeping. And all of this is lifestyle, is the underlying.
Yeah, and I find it fascinating that you're talking, specifically, so you're tracking the hormone levels at different times of the day, because that's also helping you to understand what's going on in the body.
Yeah. And so even though I don't prescribe bioidentical hormones, they are a part of being healthy for women, and it's all a choice. So, a lot of times I do attract women who don't want to take any hormones. It's like, okay, we'll work with it without, but some women, it's like, they do take that referral and appreciate it. And then we just all work together.
Awesome. So, and to me, like hormones, the way I think of them is just like the messengers for basically every bodily function that we have. So just like you're saying, it's not, I often think, we're oversimplifying because we're talking in terms of this, that, or the other hormone. And it's like, no, there's actually a whole litany, a symphony of different
A
hormones.
symphony is a good way to say it, like an orchestra, because so here's for instance, it's like, so I will see a woman who may be on thyroid medication, but she's still feeling really tired. Well, the thyroid is, I like to call the gas pedal, but the adrenals are the gas tank. So if you don't have anything in your tank, and you can press on the pedal all you want, you are not going anywhere until you fix your adrenals. So that's very common. Is that women are still coming in saying, I'm on thyroid medication and I still am not well. So you got to go to the underlying cause. So that's kind of what we do with functional medicine.
Okay. And I know a big issue for ladies who come into the program is oftentimes they're just not happy with their bodies at this point in time because things are changing and, they've maybe accumulated some weight over time and now they're finding themselves 20 pounds overweight and not able to lose the weight the way they used to. So is that hormone related too, or what?
Absolutely. Yes, a lot of that is driven by insulin. So when we eat food, of course, any kind of sugars and carbohydrates will raise our blood sugar, and then the insulin has to come in and lower it. And basically, as we get older, a lot of times that mechanism can break down and you can end up with insulin resistance. But insulin is one of the biggest ones for weight gain, and inflammation. So that's one of the things is working with women, and I've had them start, okay, so like here's an example. I had one woman who was at about 100. So if you're counting carbohydrate grams, which I do recommend for a lot of women because of the sensitivity to the insulin, and she was about 100 a day, and she thought she was doing pretty low carb, and she lowered it to 60, and boom, she was really starting to feel better. Her belly fat was melting away, and it was really within a couple weeks. So it's just that we're all different. We're all different on our ability to tolerate carbohydrates and sugars. And that's what drives the insulin, and insulin drives fat storing and inflammation. Right. So yes, so the whole body image thing, yes, it's like, there's also pain. And here's the other thing I hear a lot is women who are too tired to exercise. Mm-hmm. They're too tired to come home and cook dinner because they're just too tired. So they're too tired to feed themselves right. They're too tired to move. And so then you're in that downward spiral. So that's what I really want to see, like, okay, let's get you stopped and start going, back in the other direction,
I like that. So it's kind of like a progression. It's not like a dive in. It's like, let's start moving things back in the right direction. So yeah, exactly. I know you've got your Vibrant Healthy Woman program that supports, you must be doing a lot of education about what that whole cycle looks like of the foods that we're eating and just helping women to understand all of the different foods. To me, it's amazing how many foods on the grocery shelves, like 75% of them have some form of hidden sugar in them. Yeah, and absolutely. That's exactly some of the education that you're doing. So what are some of the key takeaways that you would say as far as someone who needs to get on that awareness train for sugar and insulin levels?
I just did a free class in my Vibrant Healthy Woman Facebook group and page, and sugar seems to be like the thing that women want to hear about because I had a lot of response to that. And when I work with women and I put them on certain ways of eating, if we're looking at insulin problems and inflammation, I'm always going to lower the sugar. And I have a food list, and we go through the food list of like, I either do, it's kind of meeting where they are. So it's either like, okay, can you learn? So it's learning what is in your food. So how, like how many carbs is in an apple? how many is in a banana, how many is in a, what you're eating. So that's kind of an awareness. And then we go into reading labels, learning to read labels, because you're not always like the recommendation is to shop on the outside of the grocery store and get all the meats and the dairy and the fruits and the vegetables and the fats, but you may buy some packaged food. So learning how to read labels, learning what the label means, and then the awareness of what food does to your body. So connect food to your body. So if you eat breakfast and say you eat oatmeal with granola and blueberries and it's healthy, but you want to fall asleep in an hour and you're really grouchy and you're starving, then you didn't have enough protein and fat. And it's very, very individual. So it's really learning what you can eat for your body. Same thing. So that actually clears up a lot of energy and fatigue problems, is dialing up protein and fat. And yeah.
Yeah, and that's where my body is, and I recognize that other people are different, and we've got circadian rhythms. Like I'm a morning person, so I do enjoy eating earlier in the day. I like working out and then having something, and it always, for me, works best, a little protein, like you said, some healthy fat in the morning, but lots of veggies. And as long as I stay alkaline, that's one of my targets, is so to keep my sugar bug at bay. I want to have my chocolate every day without falling into the deep end of becoming the sugar addict. It's like the, and so through your program, it sounds like you're educating women to understand how to get a sense of the balance that they're eating on a regular basis so that they can make healthier choices. Like, is this a prescription for life, or do you kind of get to a point where you've got it dialed in for what works for you, and then you've got like a sense of food freedom, or how does that look?
I write a report for them, and it's usually like a 10-page report. So it has everything about what's going on and all their hormones. But then it's like, okay, this is what you can do, supplement wise, but food wise, there's a lot of stuff in food on there. And what I've learned with women is just there's always a path to success, but it's not just one path. You can't just say, okay, this is the way you have to do it. I have one patient who we put her on she had a lot of inflammation and all sorts of things that required a low carbohydrate diet. But for her, she's an accountant and she doesn't want to count anything. So then we worked with food lists. It's like, okay, eat this, not this. So it's really about, learning, so having the energy to cook and learning what foods are the good, basically I would say the good ones, I guess you could even say like foods you can eat unlimited, foods that are kind of good, and then foods that you want to avoid most of the time, and then learn how your body responds to all of it.
Yeah, and I think you've shared stories with me before about women actually rediscovering. It's like, oh wait, I actually enjoy cooking.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised at how many people, and again, I think it's just a product of our busy days these days that we've fallen out of the habit of cooking. It's like, oh, it's actually quite joyful. And
and a lot of women too, if you've got families, one of the biggest challenges is women with kids. The kids don't want to eat the healthy food a lot of times, even though they really should. But I have one woman who she's cooking for herself, and then she's cooking for the rest of her family. And that's tough. I mean, it's hard enough to cook for just like, one meal, let alone having to alter it. But that's a commitment to your own health, because I think from like the mind body thing, it's like you really need to make yourself a priority as if, you're the woman, whether you have kids, grandkids. I mean, we're doing so much, caregiving for parents, businesses, jobs. And I find that women are putting themselves lower on the priority list, not at the top, but down at the bottom. And that's where that needs to come up to the top too.
Yeah, it's interesting. So once we break through those old patterns and put ourselves as a priority and begin fueling ourselves, then we've got the energy to go back and take care of everybody. So
exactly. Yeah.
Break that catch-22 that kind of has us stuck in that cycle of
Yeah.
Just depleted energy.
And so, yeah, so self-care, it's something else I recommend. I recommend self-care. And the energy of being, so like really the bottom line is stress, is chronic fight or flight, which creates the adrenal stress, which can take out your other hormones. And then you're just in that place of like where I was, I could barely get off the couch. I mean, you are in survival mode. So it's like learning to um, break that pattern and improving your hormones. So women come to me and it's like they're saying they feel like they're lazy, they're unmotivated, but now their hormones are depleted to the point that they really seriously have no energy. And then they beat themselves up about, oh, I'm just lazy and you know, but no, it's like, it's not you, it's your hormones. So now let's take one baby step at a time to move you forward.
That's
As fast as you can go, as fast as you want to go, you know. So
yeah, and like you said, just so much of the judgment that goes in with that, and there's so much shame around, you know, not being able to lose the weight. And it's like, I really believe that the source of that is just all the bad information, all the conflicting dietary information that's out there.
yeah.
And it sounds like you're just going to help women to kind of dial in what works for them, but also have it fit into their lifestyles in a way that's going to be realistic for them to be able to stick to it so that they ultimately get to where they want to be.
Yeah, and realistic is a really good point. If you get a program that is just too hard and unrealistic, you won't do it.
Okay.
And
So can I ask about keto? Because I believe, I don't know enough about keto. My body just is not interested in it whatsoever. I do recognize my body does do better on lower carb, but that whole restrictive, my understanding of it is that you've really got to have it dialed in so that you go into ketosis so that you get the effects. And I also recognize, you know, it's super great when it's medically prescribed almost for certain conditions like diabetes, that it can be a lifesaver. And yet, like, can you just tell us, like, who is it a good fit for, and what's required to do it right, I guess?
Okay, so I've been a low carbohydrate way of eating advocate for years and years and years because I had really bad hypoglycemia, and so I think in my 30s, I mean, I could be driving with my ex-husband and he would look at me and I would be ready to pass out because I was like, my eyes were glazing over, and he says, oh my God, I gotta get you food. Okay. And then I discovered, this was, you know, in my 30s, I discovered the Atkins diet, which was like a godsend to me because it's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that that's what my body needed. And so I've been, you know, an advocate for that way of eating for years. And I'm certainly not perfect, but I do lead a fairly, you know, low, I know all the things I can't eat. Let's put it that way. So we have low carb ways of eating, we have paleo ways of eating, and we have the ketogenic diet. So you can go into ketosis on a low carb way of eating. It doesn't have to be like a special. So the ketogenic diets that have come out now are very, let's say they're very formulated. So you have to formulate your macros, which is your protein, fats, and carbohydrates. And I look at keto as extremely effective, but very advanced. And I don't put any of my women on it because what I have discovered is nobody I work with is advanced. If they were advanced, then they wouldn't be coming to me because they probably would already be, you know, somewhat in pretty good shape. So what my mission has changed from is to helping women understand what are refined carbohydrates versus complex carbs. What is sugar? How do you find it? And trying to get rid of the sugar and dial in, you know, what's right for you. So as far as keto, I think it's very effective. I don't really work with my women with it. It's too advanced, but I do work with some intermittent fasting though. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. I think And I think the word's gotten kind of, it's the one of the latest buzz things. And to me, it's just always been a foundation for how to eat, because I believe our digestion needs that time overnight. So if you give yourself a couple hours before bedtime and then just not, dive into food immediately, it's like you've automatically done a touch of that. So how do you spin it for your patients, clients?
I make it as a recommendation. I think there's a lot of information and misinformation out there. People are like, thinking it's so, you'll see in the news media, oh, all this new fad stuff. Well, no, it's like you said, it's not a fad. This is how our DNA is coded, because we were used to feast and famine. So for us to stop eating, like personally, I'll stop eating at 6 p.m. I'm just not a night eater. I'm done. And in the last few weeks, I decided, okay, I'm going to dial it up. And instead of eating at 6 a.m, now I'm eating at 8 a.m, 14 hours. Then you have a 10-hour eating window. That's intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
That helps to actually improve your insulin sensitivity. Now you will hear about the fasting that you can go 18 hours, you can go 20 hours. I think it's just whatever works. Like I have patients who will tell me, well, it's kind of that thing. It's what's your schedule like? It's like, there's sometimes it's like, well, I got to go do some stuff. I'm going to eat before I leave. So, and I think that I just finished reading a book called The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. And he's also written a book on fasting as well. But he's a nephrologist. So his thing is about diabetes. So he's working with the end stage people. So he's like, okay, how can we stop this? And it's fascinating book, has a lot of medical technical stuff, but his whole thing was that we're just overfeeding ourselves. Yeah. We are overfeeding, and we think we have to get up and eat immediately and have 2 snacks and 3 meals. And I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday, that it's keeping our insulin levels high all the time. Mm-hmm. And if insulin is a fat storing hormone, then guess what? You're just fat storing all the time. And because of my history of hypoglycemia, it's like, okay, let's stop buying into that I need to eat for my blood sugar, and let's put many hours. So that's kind of a lot of the low carb thing, is that you can eat breakfast. You shouldn't really have to eat for 5 hours. You shouldn't have to eat a snack every 2 hours of the day. So his thing was, it's about overfeeding.
Yeah.
And so I'm bringing that into my work as well.
Yeah. So, we're the saying, like we're the most overfed, undernourished society in the world. And a lot of the things, and it's funny to me because, the food industry does such a great job at marketing all these things that are healthy, like the breakfast bars now. And it's like, oh my gosh, look at the companies that are bringing these out, like Special K or whatever. And it's like, sugar. Back in the day, I was doing triathlon kind of mentorship for the team in training. And it just cracked me up because we were starting right at the beginning of the season, and maybe you're running three miles, and people would come and they'd be loaded up with the goos and the Cliff Bars and all these extra things. And I'm like, dude, like you don't need any of that to start out with. Yeah. It's almost like we have too much information for our own good. So what a great opportunity to plug into somebody like you that can help them sort through. It's like, okay, this works for you with your crazy schedule, and let's without some of these other things. So they could be spending a lot of money on things they actually don't need.
Absolutely. And I just talked to a patient yesterday, and she's probably in her late 40s, and she's all, okay, well, and she's in the medical community. And she really said, like, oh, I thought we were supposed to be eating every 2 hours, and so I think that's and it's getting back to our roots. You can actually be a keto athlete and do really well. I used to be a triathlete, and at one time I was a vegetarian, and for me that was kind of a bad thing because of my blood sugar. So so that's the thing. It's like finding out what works for each individual woman's body to thrive at your optimal health.
Right. Yeah. There's a famous triathlete. He's like done more Ironman, and I want to say he's vegan, Rich Roll.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I saw what he eats in a day, and it is amazingly small amounts of food. So I think that's another thing where we are just so, like you're saying, we're taught to eat every two hours. It's like we're also taught that, so that we need so much food. It's like, well, what if we don't? And so to me, that's one of the things I like to tip towards is like start eating more green and see, how much food. Listen to your body. Are you really hungry? It's noon, but are you hungry? It's like we eat because it's noon.
Yeah.
Not we're not eating because.
Yeah, and that's true. And we get hungry because we're not satiated because we usually haven't had enough fat. So
Right.
I always tell women to dial up the protein and fat and lots of green veggies. Like tonight we're having salmon and broccoli and red bell peppers. And that's, a really good meal. And with that amount of fat from the salmon, it's like I don't have to have a snack before I go to bed. So it's kind of like it's dialing up the fat and protein because so we had fat was vilified in the 1980s and we ended up with our low fat diets became high carbohydrate diets because what else do you put in your diet? And I remember, oh my gosh, I was an athlete, a runner, a triathlete, and I love my carbs, but I was just probably, it messed me up. But it was the thing where there was even like no fat diets.
Yeah.
And that was accepted, but that's the beginning of the obesity epidemic in our country.
Yeah.
And we're still dealing with that, where people kind of say, yeah, I know fat's good, but I don't really want to eat any, but I know it's actually good for you. So we're still having that.
And it's interesting because back in those days, I was training and burning a ton of energy. So you actually need carbohydrates for that fast burn fuel. And it was interesting because after I stopped doing it, I really had an adjustment. It was like a wake up period because to me, I think of it in terms of two fuels. You're either a fat burner or you're a sugar burner. So you
Absolutely.
became a sugar burner because that was fast and efficient. But in the meantime, I needed to switch back. And I think to be burning fat because it's a slow burning fuel that'll, like you said, then you don't have the afternoon dips and the mood swings and
Right.
you have to eat right away. It's like, no. You've got that slow burn fuel. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's a sugar burner will be hungry all the time, get irritable, hungry, food on the brain. You're just really like a little bird. You want to eat all day long. That's a sugar burner. And so when you start going into more fat burning, that is ketosis, is fat burning. So the lower your carbs, the more you're going to burn fat and have more steady energy, and back to, like that just comes right back to the hormones, because if your insulin is high, it will mess up all your hormones. So that seems to be kind of my message that I end up with, because my last two classes I did on my for free on my Facebook were about energy, but that always comes back to blood sugar. And my first one was on sugar. So, yeah.
gotcha. Hey, quick question, because we were talking about, like, you and I both are morning people, so ending our eating at 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening's easy for us. But what do you recommend for people that are the opposite and they like eating at 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night? Is that a problem, or are they just on a different time clock and so they should just wait till later the next day to eat, or do they really need to make sure that they're allowing a couple hours before they go to bed?
Now, I do not eat 3 hours before you go to bed. Well, maybe stop eating at 8, and they're the kind of people who stay up till 11 o'clock. So then, you could eat at 8 in the morning or 10 in the morning and get in 12 to 14 hours. So yeah, I mean, we're all going to be on a different schedule for sure.
Okay. And one of the things we kind of danced around but didn't quite pierce is about the gut health, because you mentioned inflammation a couple of times, and to me inflammation is really the precursor of so many of the chronic diseases that we have right now, and it actually begins in the gut. So we're a little, did we
Well, the gut, Yes, the gut is a source of our immunity, and it's very important to have good gut health. I mean, we've got so kind of what I see is gut health goes along with food allergies. It goes along with lower immunity, all of that, and so one of the things that can mess up your gut is sugar and a high sugar diet, high carbohydrate. Um, but yeah, so gut wise, yeah, I really look at candida is one of the things I look at. Um, and allergies and skin problems are usually going to be, it's always from the inside out.
Mhm. Yeah, and I like to think, we don't have to tolerate this stuff. You get
No.
candida or you get food allergies, and even the food allergies, you don't have to live with those forever. You can dial in and understand um, what's triggering those, and hopefully help the gut to heal in a way that eventually you may be able to enjoy those foods again.
Yeah, so I mean, that's usually a leaky gut. And one of the biggest culprits is gluten and wheat in a leaky gut. And that's usually the underlying cause of autoimmune disease. So when we look at autoimmune thyroid disease and anything RA, like rheumatoid arthritis, MS, that type of thing, we're always like, go back to the gut. Let's heal the gut. So there's many ways to do that with supplementation and diet, and stress too.
Yeah.
Stress can take a toll on your gut, and your gut also has to do with brain chemicals. So to have a healthy brain and have serotonin, and that comes from your gut too.
Yeah, which I
So
think is a huge concern for women, because a lot of times, you get into your 50s and you're kind of like in this chronic caretaker role, because the kids, maybe they're older and they're out of the house, but you're still kind of taking care of them to some extent. And then you've got these aging parents, and a lot of them are getting dementia and rheumatoid arthritis and things like that. And just like you said, it's so much tied into this gut condition of the leaky gut. Can you just tell us a little bit, and that's another thing, it's kind of like the disease of the year kind of a thing. Autoimmune is like this big name that the medical world puts on all these different conditions, and to me it's like the healing pathway is pretty much similar for all these different things of taking care of the gut. So can you explain just a touch what leaky gut is all about, and what we can do to
leaky. Yeah. So leaky gut is where you've got in the small intestine, you have the lining of your small intestine, and the cells will open up and have bigger holes than there should be, basically. Mm-hmm. So the food comes into your small intestine, and then it'll start leaking out into your bloodstream. So what happens is you end up with things. So this is where inflammation can start. So things that are not supposed to be in your bloodstream come from the gut into your bloodstream. So that creates a whole inflammation process. And the biggest offender is gluten and wheat. And also casein and dairy. So a lot of the gut diets, that's why paleo. So a paleo diet is just generally going to be proteins, fats, fruits, vegetables, nuts, but no grains, no dairy, because those are offenders to the gut. So if you do have a leaky gut, you've probably been told to avoid those things. Of course, and sugar is a big one too. Sugar is always going to be an offender. And then there's certain healing supplements that you can take. And if you have like Hashimoto's, that's going to be something where you're going to want to go gluten-free, because that's kind of a underlying gut problem there too.
Yeah. Hey, is Lyme disease kind of in that same ballpark?
I actually, I don't treat Lyme disease. That's one thing I have not done anything. I just haven't had any patients who came with it. And I think because I have my specialty, and then if you have Lyme disease, then you really end up finding a Lyme specialist, which is what I would recommend.
Gotcha.
Because because you will find naturopaths and chiropractors and functional medicine doctors who like somebody will specialize in the gut or Lyme disease or something. So yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, it's it all just comes back like a big circle. That a lot of the functionality of the digestive system is actually going to be disrupted by the same stress that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I mean, you go in and you heal your gut and you heal your hormones, you're going to heal a whole lot of stuff in your whole body. So symptoms are the tip of the iceberg, and then we have to, that's what we do in functional medicine, is getting to the root cause. So one of the things that I do, I have worked with a lot of gut issues, and I do stool testing and, you know, getting to the root cause there. It's like, yeah.
So you can learn a lot about some poop, huh?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Wow. So just kind of circling back, like what are the top tips, I guess, if you had for women that are in their 50s that have been overly on the do kind of cycle, like
Yeah.
how would you, what would be some of your top tips of like how they can just start dialing down to have a more healthy lifestyle again?
Yeah, like what you can do yourself. So one of the biggest things I always say is awareness. Like, um, like be aware and be honest with yourself about what's going on with your health and your life. And there is a point where if you're too busy, you're going to have to change that. So really awareness, you know, ask your body, awareness, what, I think that's a really big tool I use a lot, is just like really just sitting down and being honest about what's going on with your health. Now, I think busy is a big word, a big thing for women, and there's busy, then there's exhausted, then I'm too tired to cook when I get home. So really that's where it has to start, is your lifestyle. And so being aware of what your stresses are, how stressed are you, what can you let go, boundaries, learn to have boundaries with, so many women are givers and will give every single ounce and they have nothing left. So it's like there's a need for boundaries for a lot of women. I have pretty good boundaries. And then a friend of mine told me the other day around something in my business, she says, well, you have no boundaries around that. And it's kind of like, okay. And also the one thing is, what depletes your adrenals, what's depleting you? You know, learning to say no, letting go of some things and putting yourself at the top of your list. So that's kind of some mindset tools. And as far as, so really it's stress reduction. You know, if it means that you go once a week to a restorative yoga class and that's all you can do, that's a good place to start. So it really kind of depends on what's going on in your life. And then the next thing I just always say is try to dial down the sugar, because sugar can make you inflamed, can throw your hormones off. And so really just start eating more whole foods, more natural foods, and get rid of like sugar, like the things we know have sugar in it, you know, the white stuff. So.
Right. Well. I feel like we've covered a lot of territory. Awesome. So, do you want to talk about, I think you had something available on your website that might be a great resource for people who want to learn more?
Well, so I have a couple things. I have, you know, if you want to have, well, I would say you can go to my website, vibranthealthywoman.com. I have a freebie for you. It's a guide on how women can have more energy after 40. So that's kind of a free PDF. It's about 9 pages. Then you can also, when you're on my website, you can go connect with me on Facebook. And I have a page, and then I have a group. So you can go to my Vibrant Healthy Woman Tribe, and I am doing free classes there. So there are some classes that are up there on sugar and energy. And so there's some free resources. And if you want to talk about your hormones, you can always contact me at speakwithdrerin.com, and that gets you in my calendar. So those are a few of the ways. And you know, what I do physically just goes really so well with, you know, what Kathy does, because she does the, you know, I do mindset, but she really dives into the feminine, the mindset. I mean, it just is all so beautifully goes together, because we are not just physical, we are mental, emotional, spiritual, and it's really healthy to do all of that work. And
Yeah. Just like you're saying, so much of it is the layers of stress that we've had
yeah,
over time that we don't even recognize that are there because we've been carrying them around. We're so familiar with all that stress that we don't recognize it
exactly.
sitting on our body. So yeah, when we can go back in, dive into some of the releasing some of the old trapped emotions, the old stories that are keeping us limited and stressed out, it's like, yep, it
And
all
it's time to have some joy, right?
joy.
Joy.
Yeah. Well, I love the name of your Vibrant Healthy Woman program. I love the name of your More Energy After 40 and 50 and Forever. I think we're all after that, and absolutely the intention for us to plug into more joy. Our bodies are listening in, so the more that we can dial into that vibration of joy and love and appreciation, the more the body's going to show up as that vibrant,
Yeah,
healthy soul that we
absolutely.
are. And that's who we came here to be, I believe. I don't
Yes.
think
And,
God intended us to be these beaten down, over giving,
you
over caring.
came here to flourish and have joy, right?
That's right. That's right. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. This has just been a wealth of information, and I will put all the information, your contact links below, so that if women do want to dive in a little bit deeper, I highly recommend this path in particular with Erin, because again, the functional medicine approach is just so much more comprehensive than what we're going to find. Like, your doctor's not going to be telling you about paleo and these other options that are just just make so much sense, makes so much sense all the way around. So just thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your knowledge and just your passion for sharing this with women, because it's our time. These 50s should
Yeah,
be time for fun. So awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
All right, well, thank you, mademoiselle. And
All right. Well, you too. So thank you.
all right, bye for now.